الحمد لله رب العالمين له الحمد الحسن والثناء الجميل وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن سيدنا ونبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه والتابعين لهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. Inshallah ta'ala, we're going to carry on the explanation of the kitab Safinatu al-Najah. Alhamdulillah, we were in the kitab al-Tahara, and the last lesson we spoke about furud al-wudu', the things that are obligatory for a person to do in wudu'. Today, inshallah ta'ala, the author goes into another section, and he says, faslun, chapter or section, al-ma'u qalilun wa kathirun. The author, rahimahullah, he goes into the chapter of al-miyah, water. So inshallah ta'ala, we're going to go into fi bayani aqsam al-miyah. So we're going to go into fasl, this chapter, and in this fasl we're going to be speaking about bayan aqsam al-miyah wa ahkamihi, and its rulings. Okay, in this chapter we're going to learn. The author, rahimahullah, he categorized the water into two. So the water are two types. He said al-qalil and al-kathir. So the water are two types according to the author, al-qalil and al-kathir. So before we go into that, I just want to explain that why do we study the chapter of water? Water is the asal when it comes to purification. The asal for purification is water. Okay? And the second form of purification is at-tayammum, which is the earth. So the scholars, that's why they start with the first one, which is al-miyah, water, because the water is the asal. And Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, He said in the Quran, وَأَنزَلْنَا مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً طَهُورًا, that we sent down from the sky pure water. وَأَنزَلْنَا مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً طَهُورًا, we sent down from the sky pure water. And also Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, He said in the Quran, وَنُنَزِّلُ عَلَيْكُم مِّنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً لِيُطَهِّرَكُم بِهِ, and we send down, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, He says, from the sky water which you can purify yourself with. Okay? So the water, according to the Quran and the Sunnah, is that it's clean. That's why the Prophet ﷺ, when he was asked about al-ma'ul bahr, the water of the ocean and the sea, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, هُوَ الطَّهُورُ مَاؤُهُ الْحِلُّ مَيْتَتُهُ, هُوَ الطَّهُورُ مَاؤُهُ الْحِلُّ مَيْتَتُهُ, that the water of the ocean is pure, and it can also purify, and the dead that you find in the ocean are also halal for you to eat. So what we take from that is, number one, that the default position of water is that it's pure. Okay? That the water is clear, it is pure. That's why the author, rahimahullah, he felt the necessity and the need to go into the chapter of water and its rulings. And the author, rahimahullah, then said that the water is either large in quantity, little in quantity, or it's large in quantity. Those are the two types, al-qalil and al-kathir. Now, what is the dabid? Dabid means, how do we determine whether the water is little or the water is a lot? How do we determine that the water is little or the water is a lot? How do we determine it? What is it that we need in order to say this water is little or that which is a lot? The author gave it to you. He said, ma duna, that which is below, he said, al-qullatayn, anything below qullatayn is little. And the large al-kathir is al-qullatan فأكثر. Okay, and a lot is al-qullatan فأكثر. So if the water is little, we'll say it's lower than qullatan. And if it's more than qullat, if it's qullatan or more, it's a lot of water. Again, I repeat. According to the Shafi'i madhab, according to the madhab that we're studying, they divide the water into these two types. A little bit, small in quantity, and large in quantity. The Shafi'iyya, they call the amount that is small in quantity, they call it ما دون القلتين, that which is below قلتين. Okay? That which is below قلتين. And they say a lot of water is قلتان and more. Or قلتان and more. The question here is, what is the قلتان? What's the measurement for قلتان? Okay, what is it? The author, he never mentioned it in the matan. لكن the قلتان is 500 رطل بغدادي, which is disputed. And I'm going to give it to you guys in accordance to liters. So 190 liters up to 216 liters. The qullatan, the measurement of qullatan is disputed. The lowest that I've come across that was mentioned is 190 liters, and the largest, the highest that was mentioned was 216. So in between the two is 26 liters. There's a dispute of 26. If you put 13 here and you put 13 here, the middle number is going to be the fair to say that the qullatan is. Okay? So Shafi'iyya believe that the water is either large in quantity or little in quantity. Okay. I hope that's understood, that the students have understood that point. This particular point that the author rahimahullah is mentioning. Here, let's go in. And there's a reason why mentioning this is very important. Okay? The author then says, Faslun, chapter. Al-ma'u qalilun, the water is little. Wa kathirun, and it's also a lot. Fal-qalilu, that which is little, is ma dun al-qullatayn, that which is lower than qullatayn. Wal-kathiru, and that which is large in quantity, according to the Shafi'iyya, is qullatani fa-akthar. It is 2 qullatan and more. القليل ينجس بوقوع النجاسة فيه وإن لم يتغير. Okay. The little, it becomes impure if it comes in contact with impurity. Pay attention to this. Even if it does not change. If the water is below qullatayn, the water is below qullatayn, it's below qullatayn, ما دون القلتين, so it's little, according to Shafi'i. If it's qalil, they believe if it comes in contact with impurity, it becomes impure whether it changes it or not. And the changing can happen in 3 ways. 3 ways it gets changed. We're going to see it, inshallah ta'ala. The first one is the ta'am, the taste. The second way it can change is lawn, the color. And the third one is ar-rih, the odor and the smell. If it changes in these 3, it becomes impure. The Shafi'iyya lakin are saying, if the water is below qullatayn, it doesn't even have to change. These 3 don't have to change. If it's little and little to them is madun al-qullatayn, they are saying that that water is impure. That water is what? Impure. That's what the Shafi'iyya are saying. Where did they get that from? Where are they getting that argument from? I hope everyone's with me. Where are the Shafi'iyya getting that argument from? What's their evidence for this? The evidence is the hadith of Abdullah ibn Umar. Abdullah ibn Umar, he said that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, إِذَا بَلَغَ الْمَاء, if the water reaches قُلَّتَيْن, that the Prophet ﷺ was said to say, إِذَا بَلَغَ الْمَاء قُلَّتَيْن, if the water reaches قُلَّتَيْن لَمْ يَحْمِلِ الْخَبَثِ, the water is not going to be filthy. Okay, pay attention to this. So this is the hadith. إِذَا بَلَغَ الْمَاء قُلَّتَيْن لم يحمل. Okay. This is the hadith. If the water reaches, this is their evidence. The Shafi'iyya's evidence in this issue is if the water reaches qullatayn. The water reaches qullatayn. That water cannot take filth. Okay? This is their evidence. You have to understand the wajh dalala, how they're going to extract it from it. The hadith has two things that we can take from it. It has a mantuq, and it also has a mafhum. I'll explain what that means. The Shafi'iyya are saying our evidence to show that if a water is little in quantity, that it becomes impure regardless of whether these three change, regardless of whether it changes or not, it doesn't matter to us. That we consider that water to be impure. They said it's this hadith. Now, I'm going to, bi-idhnillah al-kareem, without overwhelming you, I'm going to bring down the discussion for you. The discussion is as follows. And this is a very long discussion amongst the Shafi'iyya and others. And so it's very important that you understand it before you strengthen one opinion over the other. I mentioned in the beginning of the class that the water, it's pure. As Allah mentioned in the Quran, وَأَنزَلْنَا مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً طَهُورًا, we sent down from the sky pure water. Abdullah ibn Abbas, he said, all of the water from the earth had come from the sky. So all of the water is pure. In its original essence is that the water is pure. And this is a consensus amongst the ulama. Ibn al-Mundhir rahimahullah, he transmitted the consensus. That there's a ijma' amongst the ulama, unanimous agreement, that the default position of water is that it's pure. I hope that everybody understands this point. That the water is pure. That's the default position. What is the discussion? The discussion is something that the Shafi'iyya said. The Shafi'iyya said that the water that's little in quantity, it becomes impure if it comes in contact with impurity. If it comes in contact with impurity, that water is impure. The Shafi'iyya are using evidence. We're going to come to the evidence, is what I wrote on the board. But before I go into the evidence, both parties agree on two things. Both parties, meaning the Shafi'iyya and the other fuqaha, they agree on two things, which is the water in its default position is that it's pure. Shafi'iyya agree to that, and the other party of scholars agree to that. That the default position of water is that it's pure. Water is tahir. Water originally is pure. Okay? And it is also mutahhir, it can purify you. They all agree on that. The second thing that they also agree upon is if the water is large The water is large. And it changes. Its smell changes. Its taste changes. Its color changes. They both agree that that water is impure as well. I hope that's understood. So there's two things they agree upon. The first is that the default position of water is that it's pure and it purifies others. The second thing that they all agree upon is what? The second thing that they all agree upon is that any water, whether it's little or a lot, it doesn't matter. Any water that changes in terms of its color, taste, so the color changes, the taste changes, the fragrance changes, they also agree that it's impure. Those two is a ijma'. There's a consensus on that. There's no difference of opinion. The difference of opinion is this, which is something that the Shafi'iyya are bringing on board, that they're bringing into the discussion, which is, what about if the water is very little? It's little water, and someone comes and urinates in this water, and it's very little. This little water, its taste hasn't changed, its smell hasn't changed, and its color hasn't changed. Ayyuha Shafi'iyya, what do you say about this? Shafi'iyya are saying this water is impure based on what? بِمُجَرَّدِ الْمُلَاقَات. Just the fact that it came in contact with impurity. This is now the discussion amongst them and the other scholars. The other scholars are saying, la, that water is pure. It's tahirun mutahhir, it pure and it purifies. That's what the other scholars are saying. Because they said, Allah says in the Quran, وَأَنزَلْنَا مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً طَهُورًا, that we send down from the sky pure water. How have you removed it from its purity? Bring us your evidence. Shafi'i said, we have our evidence. Shafi'iyya are saying, we have our evidence. And our evidence is this hadith Ibn Umar. The hadith Ibn Umar is our evidence. This hadith, of course, Imam al-Tirmidhi and Ibn Majah and others narrated it. It has in it fiqh that we can take from it. What is the fiqh that we can take from it? إِذَا بَلَغَ الْمَاءِ, if the water reaches قُلَّتَيْن, the water reached قُلَّتَيْن, so it's there. لَمْ يَحْمِلِ الْخَبَث, the water does not take impurity. So the water reached قُلَّتَيْن, so it's a lot. Shafi'iyya say, look, this hadith is saying if the water reaches, so it's a large amount of water, it can't take impurity. That's the mantuq of the hadith. That's the statement of the hadith, the direct information that we take from this hadith, the direct instruction that we take from this hadith is that if the water is large in quantity, it never gets impure. That's what we take from it. Okay, like the ocean. If someone goes now and urinates inside the ocean, you can't really change anything from the ocean. The ocean is too big. Good. But the Shafi'iyya said the hadith has a mafhum. The hadith has a what? A mafhum. Mafhum means there is an information that we can take from this hadith that's not seen from the direct instruction. It's understood from the reverse. Which is what? The hadith says, إِذَا بَلَغَ الْمَاءُ قُلَّتَيْن. If the water reaches قُلَّتَيْن. What about if the water didn't reach قُلَّتَيْن, Shafi'iyya said? Meaning is مَا دُونَ الْقُلَّتَيْن. Here it says, لَمْ يَحْمَلِ الْخَبَث. Shafi'iyya is saying, يَحْمِلُ الْخَبَث. It does then take impurity. That's our understanding from the hadith. That's the understanding they're saying. Are we all together? Shafi'iyya using this mafhum. They're saying that the hadith said if the water reaches qullatayn, it does not take impurity. The reverse understanding is if the water does not reach, because this is saying if it reaches qullatayn. He said, the Shafi'iyya are saying, no, what about if it doesn't reach qullatayn? Then it does take impurity. That's their argument. Okay, is that understood? Now, we have a problem here, which is Shafi'iyya, you guys are using mafhum. Okay? You're using a mafhum, an understanding that the hadith didn't say that. Okay? The hadith didn't say that, is what you understood from the hadith. What the hadith did say, on the other hand, is that if the water reaches qullatayn, it doesn't take impurity. This is your understanding, ayyuha shafi'iyya. And the Shafi'iyya then said, the mafhum is mu'tabar. The mafhum is something we can use. Why not? Why can we not take it? Why can we not take it? Mafhum is what we can take on board. And an example that they gave for using mafhum generally, or evidences that we can take from mafhum, is that Allah says to us in the Quran, subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah says to us in the Quran, وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا إِمَّا يَبْلُغَنَّ عِنْدَكَ الْكِبَرَ أَحَدُهُمَا أَوْ كِلَاهُمَا فَلَا تَقُلْ لَهُمَا أُفٍّ. Do not say uff to your mom. The ayah says, do not say uff to your mom. And then the mantuq of the ayah, the direct instruction of the ayah, is that we can't say uff to our mothers. But what about hitting your mother? Can you hit your mother? Now we're going to say the mafhum of the ayah is that. The understanding that we take from the ayah is that if you can't do what is less, which is to say uff only, then of course you can't hit her. Something less was prohibited. But where did you get from that we can't hit her? That's a mafhum. That's a what? Mafhum. Mafhum meaning it wasn't mentioned in the ayah. And of course the mafhum are different. Mafhum which is muwafaqa, mafhum which is mukhalafa, and there's different types. We're not going to go into that now. It's not a lesson of usul al-fiqh. But I just wanted to give you an understanding of the concept of mafhum. Now, the other scholars, they came back. They said, Shafi'iyya, we have a question. Ayyuha Shafi'iyya. Oh Shafi'iyya, we have a question. We want to talk to you guys. Shafi'iyya said, oh, faddal. They said, Shafi'iyya, you are saying that there's a mafhum that we took from the hadith. Yes. What about if this mafhum is opposing a mantuq of another hadith? And remember, the mantuq, which is what is taken directly from the hadith, always takes precedence over what is understood from the hadith. Okay, this is important. What is understood from the hadith is not as powerful as what the hadith directly instructs us. This hadith directly instructs us that if the water reaches qullatayn, that it doesn't take impurity, which is that it's pure, like the ocean and etc. The reverse understanding that you took from this hadith, ayyuha shafi'iyya, now opposes a mantuq. What is the mantuq? The hadith of the Prophet ﷺ where he said, Al-ma, the water, طاهر لا ينجسه شيء. Al-ma, water, طاهر, water is pure. لا ينجسه شيء, nothing can make it impure. Okay. Your mafhum has now been pushed by a direct statement of the Prophet ﷺ, which is what? Al-ma', water. And these two are water, ayyuha shafi'iyya, O shafi'iyya. Al-ma'u tahirun, the water is pure. La yunajjisuhu shay, nothing makes it impure. You have a mafhum here that you're using. It's opposing the mantuq. Hey shafi'iyya, what's your response? What is your response? Shafi'iyya looked at the hadith and they thought about it, because the Shafi'iyya hold usul al-fiqh daily. They hold it daily. They give a lot of weight to usul al-fiqh. And that's a science that they believe their own Imam was the one who brought it up. And it was the one who wrote it as a subject. And Imam Shafi'i was the one who actually wrote usul al-fiqh. And Imam Shafi'i, rahimahullah ta'ala. وأول من ألفه في الكتب محمد بن شافع المطلب وغيره كان له سليقة مثل الذي للعرب من خليقة. And Imam Shafi'i was the first person to place usul al-fiqh, right? So the Shafi'iyya, they went back to the discussion again and they said, okay, look, you guys are right. This reverse understanding that we took from this hadith, you're right, it goes against the direct instruction of the Prophet here. And they're saying, you're right. What is understood can never be made equal to what was said. Because this is what the Prophet said. And this is what we understood from what the Prophet said. They said, but we are saying that what we're using here is khas. Khas meaning it's specific to the qalil. This hadith is specific to the issue of the quantity and the amount of water. And this hadith is am. Am meaning it's referring to al-ma, jinsul ma. It's talking about all types of water. So it's a general statement here. And this is a specific statement. Shafi'iyya said, when there's ta'arud bayn al-khasi wal-am, if a specific and a general are both contradicting one another, which one do you give precedence to? They said that we used to always give precedence to the specific over the general. And so according to them, they said that this is why we hold this opinion strong. Like in here, there's a discussion now. Can a mafhum, which is khas, be pushed and given precedence over to a mantuq, which is am? That's another discussion for usul al-fiqh. So another usuli discussion that we don't want to go into. Okay? Anyways, it's a longer discussions in books of fiqh. And as I said before, I'm not one who wanted to go too deep into... I didn't want to go too deep into the discussion because it's not what this book is about. This book, the whole purpose for it is that it's a beginner book. And so there's no need for us to go too detailed into it. But I felt like it's going to be very easily understood, inshallah ta'ala. You guys will be able to understand it. And I'll take questions at the end, bi'idhnillah al-kareem. If you have any questions, I'll answer it for you at the end, inshallah ta'ala. Let's go over the text again. So the author, rahimahullah, he said, Faslun, chapter. Al-ma'u qalilun, water is little. Wa kathirun, and it's also large. So the water is two types. A large quantity and a little quantity. Large or little. The large, we said, is al-qullatani fa-akthar. Is 2 qullah and more. And little is what? فَالْقَلِيلُ مَا دُونَ الْقُلَّتَيْنِ. And little is مَا دُونَ الْقُلَّتَيْنِ. It's what's below قلتين. القليل is ما دون القلتين. والكثير قلتان فأكثر. القليل يتنجس بوقوع النجاسة فيه وإن لم يتغير. So Shafi'iyya believe the little amount, it becomes impure. It becomes impure if it comes in contact with impurity, whether it changes or not. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter according to the Shafi'iyya. Here's a discussion now. Here's another point that the Shafi'iyya believe. Is the water that's little, that comes in contact with the impurity, that comes in contact with the impurity, it comes in contact with impurity. Are there conditions for it, or is it just unrestricted? Shafi'iyya, they have conditions. I'm going to mention 3 of their conditions. 3 most prominent conditions. There are 3 conditions for that little water. If it comes in contact with impurity, that it becomes impure, Shafi'iyya have 3 conditions. The first one is وُرُودُ النَّجَاسَةِ عَلَيْهِ. Shafi'iyya, they say that the water, the impurity has to come on top of the water. This is a reason why they're saying this. They're saying that the water is somewhere and then the impurity goes on top of the water. That's our first condition. Why are they saying that? Because they want to escape the statement of the Prophet ﷺ when he said, when he asked salawatullahi wa sallam alayhi dhanuban min ma. When the Prophet ﷺ asked for a bucket of water, remember the Bedouin man who came to the masjid, فَبَالَ فِي طَائِفَةِ الْمَسْجِدِ فَزَجَرَهُ النَّاسِ. The Bedouin man who came into the masjid and he urinated in the side of the masjid. He went to the corner and he urinated. And when the Bedouin man urinated, the Messenger alayhi salatu wassalam, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he called for what? He called for a dhanuba mimma. He said, get me a bucket of water. And the bucket is lower than qullatayn. Okay? It's less than qullatayn. And the man urinated. And so the Prophet ﷺ commanded that water to be poured over the urine of the man. And then the Shafi'iyya believe that water would be impure. How can it purify? Sahih? So they want to leave that i'tirad, that point that can be brought against them. So they said the first condition is that the impurity has to be brought to the water. If the water is the thing that's going on the impurity, is a different discussion, they said. It's a different discussion. Very good. Does that make sense? This is important. Number 2, you have to be sure that the urine came in contact with the water. So someone's doubtful. I don't know. Did they come in contact? No. Because the asl is that the water is tahirun mutahhir. In order to remove the water from its purity, you need yaqeen, certainty. And they're saying, shak, doubt, cannot remove it. Al-yaqeenu la yuzalu bil-shak. Al-yaqeenu la yazulu bil-shak. That the yaqeen cannot be removed. The certainty cannot be removed with doubts. We are sure that the water is pure. We're sure. We know that the water is pure. Now that we know that the water is pure, in order to remove it from that position of purity, we would need to be certain that it came in contact with impurity. Number 3 is أن تكون النجاسة منجسة له. The third condition is that the impurity makes it impure. It has to make it impure. That's what they said. It has to make it impure. And we're going to come to that in more details, inshallah, what they mean by that, inshallah ta'ala. والماء الكثير لا يتنجس إلا إذا تغير طعمه أو لونه أو ريحه. Now the Shafi'i are going into the water which is large in quantity. The water which is large in quantity, لا ينجس, it doesn't become impurity. It doesn't become impure. It doesn't become impure. إلا unless إذا تغير طعمه, the taste changes. أو لونه, or the color changes. أو ريحه, or its smell and the fragrance changes. These three, if it changes, the water becomes, according to the scholars, it becomes a water which is impure. You can't use it anymore. Lakin, the thing that the water can get in contact with are 2 things. If the water comes in contact with something which is pure in and within itself, so something pure comes in contact with a large quantity of water, it comes in contact with water, if it changes one of its descriptions, one of its characteristics, it changes طعمه أو لونه أو ريحه, it changes either the color, or it changes the taste, or it changes the fragrance. And that thing which is changing it is a pure thing. So something pure came and changed the water. For example, tea bag. You take a tea bag, you got hot water, and you put the tea bag inside the water. Now the tea bag is pure. Okay? And the water is pure. That water is tahir. It's pure. We will call that water pure. Lakin it is not mutahhir. It can't purify. Okay? That water is pure, but it can't purify. What about if the water comes in contact with something and it makes it change its color or its taste or its fragrance? It makes it change one of those 3. And that thing is impure that came in contact with the water. Then this water is not only غير مطهر, not only can it not purify you, but it's not pure in and within itself. It's not pure in and within itself. So the water can either be pure in and within itself, but not be able to purify you. Or it is pure in and within itself and it can purify you. Okay? So the water that's pure in and within itself, but cannot purify, is the water that comes in contact with something that is pure and it changes one of 3 from it. It changes the taste, it changes the color, and it changes the fragrance. If that which came to the water, that which has come in contact with the water is an impure thing, then, and it then makes it change its color, and then it makes it change its taste, and it makes it change it in its fragrance, then this water is considered to be غير طاهر. It's not pure in and within itself. There's no use for it. So tea, for example, is pure. These orange juices and apple juice and whatnot, they're pure. But they can't purify us. We can't do wudu with it. The water that's pure can do three things for us. The water which is pure and purifies, it can do three things for us. Three things we use for it. The first one is al-ghusl, al-wudu, izalatu najasa. The water that purifies, that's pure in and within itself, and it can also purify, is the one that we can do ghusl with. Okay? Because this is the maqsad, this is the objective of the water. Ghusl, I do full ghusl. Or al-wudu, I can do wudu from it. Or izalatul najasa, or I can remove impurities that have fallen onto me. Something impure is on my clothes, I clean it with it. Or someone urinates in the masjid, for example, we need water which is tahir, mutahhir. This is important. The water is tahir, and it also has to, plus it has to be mutahhir. Tahir means it's pure in and within itself. So tea is tahir. Okay? Tea is tahir. Mountain Dew is definitely tahir. Oh, definitely. Mountain Dew is definitely tahir, inshallah ta'ala. Okay? Try Mountain Dew. Try it out. Tea is tahir. These are tahir. Mutahhir means what? Purifying others. Can tea purify someone? No. What do we mean by purifying someone? We mean you can't use it for ghusl. We mean you can't do wudu with it. And we mean you can't use it for izalatul najasa. Okay? But what can you do with it if it's tahir? You can cook, you can drink, you can utilize it in other things, but you cannot utilize it in these three. Okay? You cannot utilize it in those three. That's important, inshallah ta'ala. Now we're going to go into the next chapter, which is Faslun Mujibatul Ghusli Sittatun. We're now going to go into, because we've understood that water purifies. Okay, we studied it. Now we're going to go into what can you do ghusl with. So the author now wants to go into one of those three. We've spoken about al-wudu already. We're now going to go into al-ghusl. What are the things that make ghusl wajib? What is it that makes ghusl wajib? Meaning you have to do ghusl from it. Okay? The first thing is, the author mentioned, so the first thing that the author rahimahullah mentioned is ilajul hashafati fil farji. So the first one is that makes it impure. That necessitates ghusl is, so the first one that necessitates the ghusl becomes wajib is ilaju hashafatin fil farji. The two private parts coming into contact. That's what it is. The two private parts, the male and the female's private part coming into contact. And this is important because nothing more than that has to happen. There's nothing more than that has to happen. Just the fact that these two private parts come into contact, it necessitates ghusl. Okay? I have to be a bit more explicit, inshallah ta'ala, and it's not something I like to speak about, but there's a necessity for it, inshallah ta'ala. And that is, some people have the belief that the only time the ghusl becomes obligatory is after the husband reaches ejaculation. They believe that's the only time when the ghusl becomes wajib. Or the wife. That's what they believe. لكن it's خطأ, it's a mistake. If the two genitals, the husband and the wife, they come into contact, and even if they stop from that moment onwards, ghusl is wajib. If those two private parts touch each other, mujarrad of touching, just merely touching, it becomes obligatory for them to do ghusl. And this is based on the hadith of Abu Musa al-Ash'ari. So the evidence for this point of the author is the hadith of Abu Musa al-Ash'ari. That the Prophet ﷺ, he said, إِذَا جَلَسَ بَيْنَ شَعْبِهَا الْأَرْبَعِ. If the husband sits between the woman's four, he sits in between her legs, وَمَسَّ الْخِتَانِ, and the two private parts touch, فَقَدْ وَجَبَ الْغُسْلِ. The ghusl becomes wajib. إِذَا الْتَقَى الْخِتَانَانِ وَجَبَ الْغُسْلُ. Another narration says, if the two private parts come into contact, then the ghusl becomes obligatory. It's obligatory. Okay? That's the first one. That's the first point. The word hashafati is a private part of the man, and the word al-farji is the woman's private part. Okay? That's what the word hashafa means. Ilajna, it means wusul, reaches. Okay? Or comes in contact with. That's what it means. So the word hashafa is the man's private part, and al-farj is the woman's private part. So it means ilajul hashafati fil farji. It's when the man's private part meets the woman's private part. Wa khurujul maniyyi. Wa khurujul maniyyi. Khurujul maniyyi means it's the second step, which is if the man reaches ejaculation. Okay? This also necessitates ghusl as well, which is al-ma min al-ma. Water is from water. Okay? And Imam Muslim narrated this. And this is based on the hadith of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri. Some people might say to themselves, but why would the author mention this if he's already mentioned ilajul hashafati fil farji? If the author has already said, if the two private parts come into contact, then the ghusl becomes wajib. Why would he then after mention that khurujul mani? He's already mentioned a step before that, which the ghusl became obligatory. Why would he then have to mention this? He's mentioning this if the ejaculation happens without any sexual intercourse, like a wet dream, like any other means. If a person reaches khurujul mani, ejaculation comes, the mani comes out, then ghusl is wajib. The mani, the scholars, they say it can come from the man and it can also come from the woman. It can come from both of them. It can come from the man and it can also come from the woman. And the evidence that it can come from the woman is the hadith narrated by Salamah radiallahu anha. She said, جاءت Sulaym ila Rasulillah. Sulaym, who's the mother of Anas ibn Malik, she came to the Prophet ﷺ. فقالت يا رسول الله. She said, O Messenger of Allah, إن الله لا يستحيي من الحق. Allah is not shy from the truth. Allah is not shy from the truth. فهل على المرأة من غسل إذا احتلمت. She said, O Messenger of Allah, if a woman has a wet dream, does she have to do ghusl? The Prophet ﷺ, he said, نعم إذا رأت الماء. Yes, if she sees the water. If she sees lubricant, if she sees fluid, then she has to make sure that she does ghusl. So somebody had a wet dream, they had the feeling, but when they woke up in the morning, they didn't see anything. But they had the feeling. Okay, they had the dream, but then when they woke up, nothing was there. No trace, no sign, no nothing. This does not necessitate ghusl. The feeling does not necessitate ghusl. What necessitates ghusl is إذا رأت الماء, if you see the fluid. Sulaym, when she said that to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, فغطت سلمة. When Sulaym asked that question, Salama covered her face. She got shy, the Prophet's wife, Salama. Sulaym asked that question, Salama was sitting there. She became very shy from what her sister Sulaim asked. And then the Prophet ﷺ, while he was sitting there, Salama asked a question. She said, Ya Rasulullah, awatahtalimu al-mar'ah? Salama said, does a woman have a wet dream? Does that happen to a woman? قال نعم. He said, yes. He said, yes. And then the Prophet then carried on saying to her, تربت يمينك. May your right hand be dusted. فبما يشبهها ولدها. Who does the child look like? Who does the child look like? The Prophet is trying to say, alayhi salatu wasalam, here, that whoever from the husband and wife reach the ejaculation first, the child most likely looks like that one. وهكذا, and things like that. The scholars extracted from the hadith. على كل حال, خروج المني. خروج المني. The many coming from the man. The many is not impure. What I mean by that is the many itself is not impure. But the person becomes impure from when they reach that moment. Like in the many is not something that is impure. Yani if it goes in somewhere, it's not impure. Okay? It's not impure. That's important that to be understood. How do we know the many from all the other forms of liquids that come from men? How do you know that from the rest? They say that the mani is the one that necessitates from it, comes from it, a child. It is the one that, as fuqaha say, it is the one that when the person, it happens to them, they reach tiredness, fatigue, and joy. So that's the mani. That's how they distinguish it from the madi and the wadi. Okay? The wadi and the mani. And the wadi, that's how they distinguish one from the other. Good. Number 3. The third thing that necessitates ghusl is al-haydu. Al-haydu, menstruation. Al-haydu, it means the menstruation of the woman, the menstruation blood. The woman has a monthly cycle that comes. That monthly cycle is called hayd. The women, they receive 3 types of bloods. There's 3 types of bloods that the women receive. The first one is called al-haydu. Al-haydu is menstruation. Women should study that. They need to know that and understand it, and the rulings regarding that. This al-haydu is a damun tabi'iyun. It's a natural blood. Okay? And it comes min aqsar rahim al-mar'ah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke about it in the Quran. يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْمَحِيضِ قُلْ هُوَ أَذًى فَاعْتَزِلُوا النِّسَاءَ فِي الْمَحِيضِ وَلَا تَقْرَبُوهُنَّ حَتَّى يَطْهُرْنَ فَإِذَا تَطَهَّرْنَ فَأْتُوهُنَّ مِنْ حَيْثُ أَمَرَكُمُ اللَّهُ. Allah says, وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ, they ask you, Muhammad, عَنِ الْمَحِيضِ, they ask you about the woman who's on a menstruation. Say to them, قُلْ هُوَ أَذًى, say that is a state of impurity. فَاعْتَزِلُوا النِّسَاءَ, stay away from the woman sexually while she's on her menstruations. You're not allowed to have any sexual intercourse with the woman whilst she's on her menstruations. Allah is saying that. وَلَا تَقْرَبُوهُنَّ حَتَّى يَطْهُرْنَ, until they do tahara. فَإِذَا تَطَهَّرْنَ, but when they purify themselves, فَأْتُوهُنَّ مِنْ حَيْثُ أَمَرَكُمُ اللَّهُ, come to them the way Allah commanded you to come to them. Now this hadith shows us, this ayah shows us that the woman on her menstruation is not a state of purity, because Allah said, قُلْ هُوَ أَذًى. Okay, it's harm. And the adhan is that it's harm. Lakin, the ayah clearly says, فَاعْتَزِلُوا النِّسَاءَ فِي الْمَحِيضِ وَلَا تَقْرَبُونَ حَتَّى يَطْهُرْنَ, until they purify themselves. So what we understand from that is that they are not pure. When the woman's on her menstruation, she's not pure. She's in a state of impurity. She's in a state of impurity. So, فَإِذَا تَطَهَّرْنَا, if the women, they do tahara. Shaykh al-Albani rahimahullah, he came with a view which is strange. Shaykh al-Albani came with a view which is strange opinion. And that view is, فَإِذَا تَطَهَّرْنَا, he said that if the woman purify herself, Shaykh al-Albani said, if the woman's menstruation comes to an end and she washes her private part, the husband can have sexual intercourse with her even if she doesn't do ghusl. She hasn't done ghusl yet. She's not done yet ghusl. All that's happened is that her menstruation has ended. She's washed her private part. Shaykh al-Albani is saying at this moment he can have sexual intercourse with her. Because his definition of the فَإِذَا تَطَهَّرْنَا, which the other fuqaha mention, is فَإِذَا اغْتَسَلْنَا. If they shower and they do ghusl. فَإِذَا تَطَهَّرْنَا, to the fuqaha, especially the Shafi'iyya, is that فَإِذَا تَطَهَّرْنَا, it means فَإِذَا اغْتَسَلْنَا, if they do ghusl, then come to them. And Shaykh al-Albani said that if she washes her private part. And that's weak. That Shaykh al-Albani, his view is very weak. It's not strong. And the evidence that it's weak is that the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, فَإِذَا أَقْبَلَتِ الْحَيْضَةِ, if the menstruation comes, فَدَعِ الصَّلَاةَ, leave off the prayer. The Prophet said what? If the menstruation happens to the woman and it comes, the Prophet said sallallahu alaihi wasallam, فَدَعِ الصَّلَاةَ, leave off the prayer. وَإِذَا أَدْبَرَتْ, so if the menstruation comes, leave off the prayer. وَإِذَا أَدْبَرَتْ, and when the hayd comes, leave off the salah. And when the hayd leaves and it goes, وَإِذَا أَدْبَرَتْ فَاغْتَسِلِي وَصَلِّي. And when the hayd leaves, فَاغْتَسِلِي, do ghusl. The Prophet said, فَاغْتَسِلِي means do ghusl. Very good. The second type of blood that comes from the woman is known as nifas, postnatal bleeding. Postnatal bleeding is the blood that comes from the woman after wilada, after she gives birth. After giving birth, there is 40 days that the woman bleeds for. This one is called postnatal bleeding. The ulama, by unanimous agreement, ittifaqan, there's no difference of opinion. They all agree that the hayd and the nifas are one and the other. The woman's postnatal bleeding and her menstruation blood are both the same. So the hayd and the nifas are mulhaqan. So the nifas is mulhaq of the hayd wifaqan, by unanimous agreement. There's no khilaf. Keep that in mind. Because what they say is that the nifas, the postnatal bleeding, what is it? It is the blood of the menstruation that was trapped for that period of the pregnancy. For the period of pregnancy, the menstruation was trapped. Once she gives birth, it's that blood that comes out. على كل حال, whatever the situation is, the hayd and the nifas are one and the other. They mean the same. They mean the same. Mean they're both the same in terms of ahkam rulings. Okay? Both the same. والولادة Wilada, according to the Shafi'iyya, they believe it's also ghusl. When the woman gives birth, the birth, they believe, it necessitates ghusl. Wilada necessitates ghusl. The reason why the Shafi'iyya believe that is because the wilada fluid will always come from you. Even if the woman doesn't bleed. There are fluid, there is things that are going to come out from her that will necessitate ghusl. That's their illah, that's their reasoning. That's not their dalil. Remember, some of their dalil is based on illah, reasoning. They're saying that all of the things that were mentioned before, like al-mani, mani. When the woman gives birth, the mani comes out. Mani will come out of her. Also, other things will come out from her. So they said, this is definitely that which necessitates ghusl. وَالْمَوْتُ, and death. The word maut is mufaraqatu الروح للجسد. Maut is when the person dies. Shafi'iyya believe that the death in necessity is obligatory to do ghusl. Who is an exception? The exception here is the martyr. The martyr is not, ghusl is not done for him. He's not done for him. The exception is that one. And that is based on the hadith of Atiyya in al-Bukhari, that the Prophet ﷺ, he said, wash it 3 times or 5 times or more. With what? Bima'in wa sidrin. Wash it with water and the sidr tree. And then the Prophet said, make the last kafuran. Use the kafur as the last thing for the washing. And also the story that Ibn Abbas narrated in Bukhari and Muslim, الذي وقصته ناقته, the man who his beast killed him, he fell from it. The Prophet said, wash it بماء وسدر وكفنوه في ثوبه, and shroud him with his garment, and do not put no perfume or anything, don't cover his head. Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala will resurrect him يوم القيامة ملبيا, in the state of ihram. And this man was in a state of ihram. Now there's a issue that we can cover, which is some people who die with the coronavirus, COVID-19. The COVID-19, some people die from it, and some people are saying, can you wash it? Are they martyrs? And etc. The issue that first of all needs to be discussed and understood is COVID-19, is it a plague, which is a ta'un, or is it just a pandemic, a waba? And according to the scholars, there is a difference between ta'un and a pandemic. A ta'un means a plague, okay? A ta'un is a what? It's a plague. And a waba is a pandemic. So, first of all, we have to discuss whether the COVID-19 is a plague or if it's just a pandemic. What is the difference between the two? The plague has a different ahkam and rulings that come for it. Whereas a pandemic is a illness that spreads, just spreads. Whereas a plague is not just an illness that spreads. And so that needs more discussion, inshaAllah ta'ala, and I think that needs to be looked into even further more, bi'idhnillah al-kareem. So without that being answered, whether it's a martyr or not cannot be answered. Because the issue of shahada that the people are looking at is from the fact that it's a plague. They're saying it's a plague. And if it's a plague, they're saying it's a martyr. Because of the hadith that have come from the Prophet ﷺ that the plague is shahada. Insha'Allah ta'ala, I'm going to stop there bi'idhnillah al-kareem. I'm going to take questions for the remaining of the class. We'll leave the furud al-ghusl, the required the obligatory acts that must be done in ghusl for next week, inshaAllah ta'ala. Anything which I have said that was wrong or incorrect is from me and shaitan, and Allah and His Messenger are free from it. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.